Doing here.
13.
13.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Complete Game. I'm your host Curt Schilling, along with my son Garrig,
What's going on, everybody?
and we are going to touch on a couple things real quick, and we'll get right. This episode, we're going to actually probably spend most of it talking about. We're at the kind of the not quite the quarter mark, but in that neighborhood. We're going to talk about. We're going to make some predictions for you guys that gamble and bet and put futures out there. Um, Pick our division winners. I'm going to pick wild cards.
We also talked about how a lot of people don't hold themselves accountable. We'll be holding ourselves
Right.
accountable.
Right. We're gonna pay attention, and at the end of the year when we get back, we could change these picks through the year, but for the most part, we'll see where we're at. Couple quick notes around the game, and then we want to talk about one guy specifically. But Teoscar Hernandez for LA is going to be out a while. He apparently has a groin injury that is going to be um, more significant than thought, and that's going to keep him out a while. Jackson Merrill's back for the Padres. They got pounded, I think 12-3, but he was 2 for 4 today. That's a huge piece to their puzzle. And um, let me, you know what? Before I'm going to pronounce his first name right. Um,
Do you have a last name?
Imanaga, the pitcher for Cubs.
Oh no, I don't.
Yeah, no. But yeah, Shota Imanaga has a he's out right now on the deal. But if you're wondering from a fantasy perspective, if you're a Cubs fan, he's out with a mild hamstring strain, probably a couple weeks. The big thing that will get him back. He's going to throw during the rehab, and that's a kind of a monstrous thing for pitchers when they go down. Generally, it's a upper body thing, but when they're down and they can continue to throw. Um, he'll bounce back faster than normal. And then we wanted to talk quickly. I wanted to talk. I noticed the other day the Yankees, and we're gonna. By the way, Friday's show we're gonna talk about Aaron Judge in depth. I'm gonna talk about pitching to Aaron Judge, how you would pitch to Aaron Judge or not. We're gonna look inside what is starting to get to a historic season. They beat the Padres 12-3, hit his 12th homer today. Um, but that's Friday. But the Yankees are 20 and 16. One of the reasons they're not better than 20 and 16 is, this winter they went out and put a monster deal together for a closer in Devin Williams, who, if you look over the last 2 years, he was as sure a thing as you could get to. Um, to say he's struggling is just I don't even know how
Do
to
you
put
want
it. But
some
I'm gonna,
numbers?
huh?
Do you want some numbers?
Yeah, I want Garrick. Garrick and I were talking about this, and he's looked into this, so he's gonna roll. Let me hear some stats.
So in his last five outings, Devin Williams has gone three and two thirds with six earned runs, five Ks, three walks, including a hit by pitch, and he's 0 and 2 in that stretch. So just a tough 5 games. I mean, when
Yeah.
you're responsible for two losses as the
Well, he
guy you're
loses the
talking about.
closer's job,
Yeah, that's what I mean.
right?
You're
And
talking about being brought in as that
right,
guy.
and I think we said this earlier. His ERA over the last 7 days is 10.13. Um, you know,
For the season, it's 10. So,
yeah, yeah. He's thrown 11 innings. He's given up 13 hits. Punched out 13. The 13 hits is kind of stunning for someone with his stuff. The bigger number that jumps out to me is the 10 walks. Um, as a guy who, from a career perspective, I mean, real quick, last year, he threw, gosh, what was it? 21 and a two thirds, punched out 38. Year before, 58 and a third, two thirds, punched out 87. Uh, 22, 60, 96, punch out 60. All 3 years, 1.93, 1.53. He was a lock. It's needless to say, he was a lock. But we talked earlier in the year. Remember that I think it was the Orioles got beat 20 to something. We were talking about the Reds or somebody won a 20-5 game. The
yeah,
Orioles lost
yeah.
a 20-run game. And commented how those aren't painful. You just can't do anything about those. I said those late inning losses are the ones that carry with you. Devin has been on the receiving end of, and knowing Aaron Boone and what kind of manager he is, he's probably made it as comfortable as he could make it um, for him. But at some point, you got to pull the plug. So they pull him out of the job. They give Luke Weaver the job. And they're gonna, what you do that generally the way that they'll do this is they'll move him back into the seventh inning or sixth or seventh or eighth inning to get him some innings without and I've said it before, the last three outs of the game are the hardest three outs to get, whether it just is. And they brought him in, I think, night before last. He comes in the seventh inning. It's a 4-0 game. Gives up two, leaves two on, or leaves the bait, walks the bases loaded, and they end up losing like 5-4, 4-3. He blows the whole thing in what should have been just a kind of a 4-0, get your feet back on the ground kind of a thing. And then Weaver comes in and blows it by giving up a double to Machado and a game-winning single. Those losses linger, man, and it's just really, well, I don't know. It's just devastating. But right now you're talking about his whip. Last year his whip was 0.97. This year it's 1.97. And to put it in perspective, when he came up his rookie year, he went 27 innings and had 54 punch outs. 27 innings, he gave up 8 hits and I mean, unhittable stuff. Just unhittable stuff. And why is this all happening? It goes back to, and you'll hear me say this time and time and time again. And even when you were playing in high school, you knew this. The game of baseball is so mental that when you're operating on either side of the fence, the highly positive, everything's going great, it's powerful, and the oh my God, I can't get anybody. And I went through a month of my career where I felt this. I literally was afraid to throw a strike for fear that I knew every strike was going to be a double. And there's just no way to hide that, especially in the ninth inning of a game. And, you know, the kind of here we go again mentality. Clearly, he's in a rut. And, this may end up see him going on the DL and getting a 10-day DL so he can go down to AAA and rehab and get some innings in just to get his feet back under him, because this has the potential to fall completely off the rails where he becomes unusable.
That's kind of I when I was looking around doing research today because I didn't really know a lot about Devin Williams. I think I had seen him in the postseason one year was the only time I'd actually seen him pitch
With Milwaukee.
with Milwaukee. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, and what I was going to ask, kind of what you're saying there is don't let this compound into a bigger and bigger thing. Do you give, and this is maybe a stupid fan question, but I have to ask for the people that aren't in the room right now to ask it. Do you give any credence to maybe that playing in New York, not necessarily the ballpark dimensions, but that could be a factor to it,
Huge.
is a big factor
Huge.
because closing for the New York Yankees is different than closing
Every
for the
game's a
Milwaukee
postseason
Brewers.
game. And by the way, in 2 postseasons, he's thrown in 3 games. He's 0-1 with a 23.14 ERA.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I have the playoff stats, what you just said there, and it's the only time you see numbers like that anywhere on his baseball reference
Yep.
page. And it's the only quote unquote pressure baseball he's had to play while he was in Milwaukee. So yeah, I was just wondering if you thought anything
Yeah,
of that.
that's kind of terrifying from that perspective. I mean, he's thrown 2 1/3 innings in the postseason. He's walked 4, struck out 2. I mean,
Hit a guy.
hit a guy, but like
That's nerves.
that's nerves. And that's a guy who now what happens is the fearful thing is that he gets in his head that it is. I can't do this here.
Yeah.
Or the fans, which New York fans are famous for, and they were booing him last game. He deserves it. He knows it. He's not making any excuses. Um, but you can only be positive for so long. I'll give you a quick story. We had a pitcher of ours, great guy. He was going through in Arizona, going through a stretch. Every outing was 5 1/3, 7 runs, 3 1/3, 6 runs, 4 or 5 starts in a row. And after every start, he would come out and say, "Well, I figured it out. I'm just not keeping my elbow down, and I need to clear my front side." And the next start, he would go out and give up 7 runs, and he would come in and he would go, "Well, you know what? I just wasn't planting my foot right." And after the fourth start, I pulled him aside and I said, "Listen, man, all credit to you for staying positive, But at some point, that whole I need to keep my elbow down or I need to get my foot in the right place, that needs to happen in the first inning and not after you've given up seven. But at some point you fall off the truck and it's like I can't there's no longer anything I can say positive, and you can see it. He came out of the game the other night, struggled, and he said, well, it was raining wet, it was hard to get my foot down. He said everybody had to deal with it, so I'm not making excuses. I felt good and all things that go with that. We might be seeing a guy who you remember Edgar Renteria in Boston. They signed him to this big deal, and he was in St. Louis, which is a big baseball place, but
The
it's different.
Yips. Yeah, no, it's different. It's a
Right.
different market. New York is crazy. It always has
Yep.
been.
Yep. So I wonder and I worry, because I know what that feels like. I don't want to see anybody go through it. And there's nothing worse. Having a bad start is miserable and all the things that go with that, but blowing a save is the worst feeling in the world. I did it and I
Well,
hated it.
it's one of those things that, like, again, we keep saying the market, but like, to give a little peek behind the curtain, like playing in Boston, you got to experience it definitely more so than I remember growing up in Arizona.
Right.
People were not waiting a
Right.
mile down the street outside the players' lot to, hey, Curt, that
Yeah.
was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a different market when you play good and when you play poorly.
Yep.
They know your car, they know your way home.
Well, it's what we talked about earlier, right? In New York, you have 3 games a day. You have to play the pregame media, you have to play the game, and then you have to play the postgame media, and that's boony for the most part. But there's no question and answer session with the media that doesn't start with them asking you what's wrong or what do you think, and so you're having to rehash it every day, and it is what it is. They get paid big money in a big market. Hey, but I want to see him turn it around, but right now, short of a rehab stint where he goes to the minor leagues, um, I don't know how he does it here because you can't keep putting him in the game and costing you games. So you have to find the 12-3. Did he pitch in the game today? Do you know if he pitched in the game today? Be,
Look,
yeah, take a look at the Yankees game. It was a 12-3 game. That's the game you put him in, right?
yeah, ideally.
That's the game that you get him in. And
No, I don't see him on there today.
no, that's surprising too, because King started for the Padres. Oh, they beat the hell. They scored 10 runs off the Padres bullpen over an inning. That's why. Anyway, yeah, so I'm a little concerned. If I'm a Yankees fan, I'm very concerned because this doesn't have the earmarks of something that just turns itself around. This isn't a hitter in an 0 for 20 who just gets a lucky broken bat single. Um, you know, he struck out the first 2 guys, I think, the other day, so he was looking good and then just fell apart. So anyway, that's Devin Williams. Like I said, on Friday, we're going to talk about we'll talk Aaron Judge. We'll break down with the whiteboard, and we actually might be changing the seats here so we can get a more constructive and instructive and visible presentation for that. But we're going to go through the divisions and talk about who we're picking winners and losers right now. And this is the halfway mark, or this is the quarter mark. So a lot can happen. This game is a game of attrition. 162 game schedule over 181 days. You got to stay healthy, and there's a lot of injuries out there.
Now, do you have anything pre-existing? I'll be honest, I have a Yankees future. That's all I have right now.
I
So
have
that isn't influencing any of my decision
right.
making going forward for the podcast. I would just like that on the record.
I have no futures on anybody. I don't believe. I have to check. I can't remember. I don't think so. But we're going to start out. We'll start at the top. We'll go to the American League East or the American League actually. Um, and I'm going to go right now. If I'm picking division winners, I'm going Yankees, Tigers, Astros. Uh,
Okay, I had Yankees, Tigers, Mariners.
Mariners,
I like the Mariners a
right?
lot.
And then I had wild cards in the American League. I had Seattle, Boston, Kansas City.
I have Boston, Kansas City, and Texas.
Okay. Yeah, see, yeah, Texas, I don't see that. All right, and then in the playoffs, out of the playoffs in the American League, I have the Tigers coming out of the playoffs as the American League champion.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Okay. What? Why? What?
Well, Scooble is
Yeah, that makes sense. I
right,
knew that would be your leadoff argument
right.
as the
And
Scooble
I think
yourself.
Joby and Mize end up being swing and miss pitching wins in October, and I think they have a lot of it. And I think that Park their park can neutralize some offenses. I love the fact that they're plus 63 right now from a run differential perspective. 13-3 at home. So yeah, I like them. And right now that's my AL pick. So over in the National League, I go Mets, Reds, Dodgers.
You have the Reds.
Yes,
I have the Dodgers, Mets, and Cubs. I like the Cubbies a lot.
right.
Always
Um,
have.
I have
Always
the
have.
Reds going back to my love of run differential. They're 18-19 with a plus 29 run differential. They're better than they're playing right now. And having played for Tito, I know that the Reds, if you're a Reds fan, there's not going to be any highs or lows in the clubhouse. He's an even keel guy, keeps his team prepared to play, and the more they play for him, the more they're going to love him. And that's going against everything. My wild cards are the Phillies, Padres, Cubs.
Mine are Padres, Phillies, Diamondbacks. I also just noticed as I was looking at the wild card for the NL, if you look, including the three division winners, the next seven teams on that list for the wild card all have a positive run
Right,
differential. So,
right. And
and
we're
that's not including the Atlanta Braves, who a lot of people have storming back to make some
we're
sort of
6 weeks
postseason
into
push.
the season, and 4 of the 5 NL West teams still have a plus run differential.
Actually, I'm gonna amend my Diamondbacks for the Braves.
Okay. Yeah, well, Acuna's coming back.
Yeah, yeah.
The Strider thing's a big deal. No,
That
gotta
was
hurt to see
short-sighted.
Max Fried being the best.
Short-sighted of me. That was a May take. I'll
Yeah,
regret that in August if I don't. So
but with Strider, and I said it's got to be painful to Atlanta to look over and see Max Fried, possibly the Cy Young winner today, throwing really well for the Yankees, which with Garrett Cole out is a monstrous thing. Yeah, and then my wild cards, I had the Phillies, San Diego, Chicago. I got the Phillies coming out of the NL. Philly Detroit World Series with Detroit winning it.
I, gosh, I do. So I do think that the Yankees will come out of the American League, but I do think that postseason on the American League side will be much more competitive
Yeah,
and much more cutthroat to get through. I think it comes down to the Dodgers and the Mets in the
yeah.
NL,
Which is yeah.
which is tough. I'll go Mets Yankees. I'll go Subway Series
Mets, Yankees,
prediction.
legit, yeah. All right, MVPs. Who's your American League MVP?
My American League MVP, pretty obvious at this point in the year to say Aaron Judge. I
Yeah,
think you're probably in the same
I
boat.
think he's going to build up
Yeah.
such a lead that it's going to be impossible. I just want him to stay healthy because I think we're looking at a historic season.
That's the I didn't even want to mention it, but like that's the only way that he doesn't win it in my
I agree.
mind.
I
So,
agree. National League.
National League, I would love to see the polar bear Pete Alonso.
That's who I picked.
Did you really?
I
Okay.
did. I
No, we
picked.
did not consult on
No,
that
we
before,
haven't
by the way.
talked about
I
this.
figured Aaron Judge would be
Yep.
yours, so I
I've got
figured we'd match
New
up
York
there.
State of Mind for the MVPs. I've got Judge and Alonso.
And my Subway Series will have both MVPs represented.
very
That would be
cool.
sweet.
American League Cy Young.
Tariq Skubal for me.
Yep, I'm with you there. National League.
And then National League, I went Yoshinobu Yamamoto. I would love to see that.
Okay.
He's had his last five starts, I think, have all been three or less in run support, like 3-0,
Right.
2-1 games.
Right.
So I love seeing guys like that. And in this era of pitching, it's so hard to like find a guy that
He's
is
still a pitcher.
pitching, most of the game. So he seems to be consistent in the 5 to 6 range, which is tough to admit that that's a quality start, but
Right.
that's what it is nowadays. So
And if I'm not, yeah, his ERA is still under 1.
yeah, he's stellar. That's what I'm saying. All these 3-0, 2-1
Yep.
games, like these are
Yep.
games that, like, thank God you're getting that type of a
4 and
pitching
2
performance.
with a 3.09.
Yeah.
So he's pitching. Yeah. I got Hunter Brown.
Okay.
And then I got my hedge bet Zach Wheeler.
All right.
Yeah. And then Rookie of the Year.
Rookie of the year, I'll go hometown Christian Campbell from the Red
That's
Sox.
who I picked
Okay.
with the Red Sox. Hey, National
What do you
League.
have for National League?
I got Andrew Painter for the Phillies.
Okay. I got Roki Sasaki from the
Okay.
Dodgers.
Yep, that's a trendy, sexy pick. I think Painter is potentially a left-handed Paul Skeens.
Okay.
Or I mean, I keep calling him a lefty, and he's not a lefty, but he's a Paul Skeens stuff. 6'7", polished as hell. The only reason he probably wouldn't win it would be because they're going to protect the hell out of him when he comes up. He's ready. I think. Oh, he's ready yesterday, but they're really kind of babying him. And they'll do the same thing when he comes to the big leagues because he ended up, like every other else, had Tommy John and all those things after. But he's the guy.
Who was your World Series again?
Detroit, Philly.
Okay. Just want to make sure I have that down.
So, couple things down the pike too. We're going to have a lengthy conversation. Like I said, we're going to talk about Aaron Judge, but we're also going to get in depth talking about sabermetrics and all of that talk that might be confusing to a lot of fans, but a lot of it's a bunch of crap. Um, but a lot of it is substantive and worth your attention to make you help you understand the game better, understand player value better. And all the things that go with that. So those are down the road. My anything else from you, G?
I was just going to add on to that something that is maybe not so obvious to everyone that knows you, but is to obvious to people that grew up and know you very, very well is that you're a nerd as well as a
Big
former
time.
athlete.
Yeah.
So these sabermetric things, like a lot of this stuff, you were writing down on pen and paper, and we got to watch
Yeah.
that growing up. So
Yeah.
so it is like a lot of it is like you're saying hogwash now. There's a lot of it to just like muddy the water,
Right.
but some of this stuff like you're obsessed with run
Right.
differential for a reason
We were
because
doing.
a
I
lot
was
of it
doing
is substantive.
right. 30 years ago, 95. I was writing down sabermetric driven stats because I knew that those matter. I didn't care what your batting average was. What's your on base
But I
percentage?
mean, you hear people
Right.
talk about stuff like this guy does this in a 2-1 count, so
Right.
such and such percentage. Like that's brand new technology. That's just figured. Yeah. So
Yeah. And I have my little bag over there with all my books in it. I'll break out a couple books and show you.
discerning what and what is not hogwash is what
Right.
we will be discussing.
Well, I mean, the ideal resolution is that when the show's over, people that aren't hardcore fans can go back and understand what they're watching from a sabermetrics perspective and kind of pick and choose the stats that matter to them. Um, wins above replacement, WAR, and all things like that. I think it's a good metric to value past players because when you're comparing all-time greats, I still believe to this day Greg Maddux is the greatest pitcher ever lived. He didn't have better stuff but he had his career in the era he had it was more dominant than any pitcher that ever lived versus the career that you look at Koufax and Gibson. Gibson, the year Gibson had a 1.12 ERA, the league ERA was 2.5. Pedro had a 1.7 and the league ERA was 5.5. Like that's not even close. And you offend people like, oh my God, Sandy Koufax was clearly no,
Yeah.
Pedro had the greatest run ever. But that's just different levels of greatness. It's like comparing Hall of Fame players, which they are. One's just, in my opinion, a little less great of a Hall of Famer. Still a Hall of Famer. So, but hopefully those will be some interesting conversations. Talk about things like spin rates and all that other crap that are infesting, baseball because little tip breaking ball spin rates for the most part are all they're ever going to be. It's hard to make your spin rate better on your breaking ball without hurting yourself, right? And I don't think a lot of people understand that. Spin rate on the fastball obviously is about finishing and release and all that. Anyway, we'll get into that at some point down the road here and there. But the guy I wanted to bring up today, another guy who was integral to my career. It came at a very important time. I got traded in 1988 from the Red Sox to the Orioles. And when I got traded, I went from Double A New Britain to Double A Charlotte and played for the Charlotte Knights. And my pitching coach at Charlotte was a guy named Mike Pazik. His nickname was Hunchy because he walked like this, and just a phenomenally funny guy. But when I look back on my career and realize I spent a month in Charlotte, in Double A, I went like a little over a month, maybe 2 months. And surprise, I didn't know it, but at the end of the season, and I was getting called up. I got called up on the last day of the season. But there was about 6 weeks there where I was with Mike with Hunchy, and his approach to me was very much uh, polish the rough edges kind of approach, which is rare in double A. In double A is where everybody gets kind of evaluated for the first time from a can he be a big league player perspective. It's the first level where you're facing tier one prospects across the board for the most part. And I worked with him for about 6 weeks. And that's where I also met another gentleman who I'll be talking about down the road, Dick Bosman. But Hunchy was just, and you couldn't get it out of him if you think everybody that was on that team, he was just a character, but he was a teacher, and I'm grateful for that 6 weeks because the mindset that he helped me get into before I got called to the big leagues was something I needed. I was still an idiot when I got called up, and I still did and said stupid things, but for the most part, the time with him kind of really, um, I don't know what I don't say it polished me because I was far from a finished product, but it really smoothed some of the rough edges. And so Mike Pazik is my guy today. So anyway, what do you got left, Garrett?
I was gonna say, well, based off of that, you're talking about the minor leagues. We did have one question left for you if you
What do you
wanted
got?
to answer that. You were on the road in the minor leagues. Can you remember the worst place you ever ate at?
Yes,
Okay.
the clubhouse in Montreal. It was the worst
What
spread.
what team was that?
It was
Montreal.
the Expos.
Okay, okay.
The worst food. So understand something. So and you know what? We'll maybe talk about this someday about the life inside a day of a big leaguer. But after games, all the clubhouse guys put out what they call spreads. It's food. It's your post-game dinner because you go back to the hotel, blah blah blah. Or on the when you're home, you're eating dinner at 11, 12 o'clock at night because you're going home, and so they put out spreads. And uh, pro tip, you want to make six figures, become a head clubhouse guy. They can make astronomical money if they're good. However, the Montreal in Montreal, it was the worst. Let's put it this way: the spread was so bad. Often, many nights, you took the peanut butter and jelly option because it's 11:30, nothing's open, and you got to get something in you. And it was either, and back then, it was it looked like an ice cream truck slash Circle K. You had every snack you could ever want and every food you could ever want in most of the clubhouses. So you went off brand if the food was bad. And the food in Montreal was consistently great clubhouse guy, nice guy, horrible spread. And here's the thing on the road, generally for the most part, I tipped a couple $100 a day. So we were on a road trip. I'd give the clubhouse guy four, five, $600. It was everything I could do not to have alligator arms when I was leaving that one, tipping him. I mean, the work they do is exhausting, but the spread was just terrible. And then I'm you know me, Gary. Like if I can sit down and have grilled cheese for 6 straight weeks at lunch. I like
I was
consistency.
gonna say, for it to be unedible for you, it has to be some pretty inhumane
Right,
stuff.
right, right.
This
But
is the Cheese Whiz guy in
right,
the four days in October documentary.
yes, yes. But I would find a restaurant outside of the hotel in a couple city, whatever. And that was where I ate Blondie's Pizza in San Francisco because it was the greatest pizza ever. The hotel restaurant in Cincinnati had the best pasta bar I've ever eaten at. And then the post-game spread in Cincinnati was the ribs from the famous rib place in Cincinnati. I just forgot, but greatest ribs ever. The post game spread in San Francisco was my favorite of all time because it was a Mexican restaurant that delivered, and they had the greatest tacos ever. And if you've never had it, San Francisco has the thing called It's It, which is the greatest ice cream invention in history. Um, but yeah, so you know what? We'll do an episode on that some point.
All
Talk
right,
about that.
sounds
So,
good.
good question. All right, guys, we'll be back on Friday. We're going to talk Aaron Judge and how you do or do not pitch to him, because not all arms are created equal, and sometimes you just need to put them on. So, you guys have a great week. We'll catch up with you on Friday.
See you on Friday. Thanks for listening.